Joining me this morning to recap some of the key takeaways from yesterday are three of my colleagues here at the Korbel School. Professor Seth Masket is director of our Center on American Politics. Professor Naazneen Barma is director of our Scrivner Institute of Public Policy. And Professor Rachel Epstein is our Senior Associate Dean for Research and Faculty Affairs. Welcome, colleagues.
Thank you.
Morning.
Now, you were all listening yesterday and participating. Rachel, thank you for moderating one of the panels. But I'd love to hear from each of you about what stood out to you about yesterday's program. Let me start with you, Seth. Seth, your focus is obviously on American politics. What did you take away from yesterday?
Thanks, Fritz. One of the things that I really was struck by was the panel on the regulation of social media and some of the problems that social media pose for democracy. I appreciated the way people discussed the problems, but that they were also focused on various solutions. We had our own Alan Chen from DU Law School there. Nancy Ankrum made some great points about who exactly a disinterested arbiter could be about social media. And David Kay made a number of really good points, taking kind of a broad perspective on solutions, saying we might want to be thinking about international human rights law rather than just the First Amendment, noting that for example, like 90% of Facebook users are actually outside the United States. He talked about some countries having press councils, non-governmental organizations that give a forum for people to present grievances to social media companies. All this suggested to me that the problems are very real, but they're not insurmountable.
Yeah. I thought that, I agree. I thought that was just a very interesting discussion. We had quite a lot of discussion on the media, social media, and the dilemma of how to regulate that. Let me turn to you, Rachel. Rachel, you're a scholar of democracy around the world, with particularly in Eastern Europe, but what stood out to you?
So in the panel that I moderated on Belarus in particular, I think that does present a series of dilemmas, and particularly how democratic activists potentially face violent regimes. And I think in the current moment, people are very focused right now in Eastern Europe on the Russian military buildup around Ukraine, very appropriately so. But I think what people are not talking about as much, the very heavy Russian troop presence in Belarus makes it so much harder for people like Tsikhanouska, who was leading the democratic movement there starting in 2020, to continue with their really excellent work. Speaking from a Western perspective, it then raises the question, in general, Democrats think international engagement is a positive thing for international relations, but it's pretty clear that Western Europe is very beholden to Russia. That makes it much harder for the West to effectively support those democratic movements.
Yeah, it's quite a perilous time. We're meeting at just the moment of, every day we learn of even more buildup of Russian troops surrounding Ukraine. And as you point out, that it's not just Ukraine, it's really all of Eastern Europe. Naz, you're the director of our Public Policy Institute, and so you cover a wide range of issues with obviously with a strong policy orientation. I'm wondering what you took away from yesterday.
Thanks, Fritz. What I was really struck by yesterday was, we framed the summit around these three dilemmas in the information environment, in the space of voting rights, and in climate and sustainability. And I think what struck me yesterday was not just the thorny nature of each of the three dilemmas themselves, but how the linkages between the different issues make things so much more complex. And I thought Maria Ressa captured that so eloquently, as she did so many things when she said, if you don't have integrity of facts, how can you have integrity of elections, right? She linked those two issues so clearly. I thought Rachel Kite also in the panel on sustainability, she made the point that we have not yet internalized the climate crisis into the multilateral system, and pointed out how the multilateral system in particular doesn't incorporate the private sector very well. And we could say the same about bringing in other non-state actors, all of which are needed, of course, to fight climate change. I think I was also struck, just on the more sort of optimistic side, that each of those linkages represents complexity, but they also represent opportunity. So Rachel Kite also said that democracies have an opportunity to succeed on the climate front by bringing in the linkage of inequality, and that is a comparative advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, I was struck by the focus on inequality and the connection between that and democracy, very strong. And as you're pointing out, climate change as well. I thought in that same panel, as a wrap up, there was asked a kind of forward-looking question, and two optimists and one pessimist in the panel, Anna Nicolo, I believe. Anna said, "Well, I'm a pessimist, but if I had to be optimistic, I would say that at least the first step to solving a problem is naming it. And once we've named it, a lot of smart people are working on this." And I sort of left the day thinking, yeah, that was a great point, because for all the difficulties, all the problems we identified, there are a lot of smart people now thinking about this, having, now that we've named the problem. And so that certainly gave me a bit more hope. Great day yesterday, and obviously there was a lot more going on. We can't touch on everything this morning, but thanks for those insights. Just very quickly, to each of you, what is the one thing maybe each of you are looking forward to today? I'll say you can go in, and we'll go back to Seth. Let me start with you again.
Okay, well, I mean, if you just browse through the agenda, there are a lot of really good panels with some very big names today. But one that I'm particularly excited about is there's a panel on vote suppression in the United States. The panelists cover a really wide range of ideological perspectives and experiences. I'm a big fan of all of them. It includes Erica Teasley-Linnick, who runs the democracy program for Open Society US, Jonah Goldberg, who runs the Dispatch, Adam Gentleson, who put out a great book last year on the US Senate. I'm really curious to see where that conversation goes and what, if anything, they agree on and conclude about the nature of the problem and its solutions.
Yeah, me too. I'm very interested in that one. Rachel, what are you looking forward to today?
I'm really looking forward to the panel on media enfranchisement and polarization. On that panel, we have experts who are both expert and in some cases media participants in the US, but also in the Indian context. And I think following on the conversation yesterday between Vivian Schiller and Zaid regarding media and polarization, there's this interesting question about whether media actually exacerbates polarization or whether we started with polarization in the first instance. I'm leaning after yesterday towards the former, but we'll see what they say in that panel today, particularly looking at the Indian and US cases.
Yeah, it's a great theme to pick up again today. And Naz, what are you looking forward to today?
There are two panels that I'm really excited about that I think talk about the tremendous sources of innovation we see across multiple fronts to restore and safeguard democracy. So there's a panel on grassroots movements and the enormous and inspiring successes to enfranchise voters and protect the votes here in the United States. And on the micro public policy level, we'll be hearing from a number of our elected officials here in Colorado. And I wanted to just remind everybody, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield yesterday quoted Ralph Bunche, the American diplomat, Nobel Prize winner, in saying that the greatest defense of democracy lies in its practice. And I hope that we're going to hear a lot about that today.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to the day too. Colleagues, thanks so much for being with us this morning and sharing your thoughts and insights. Thank you.